Kai had always been curious. Even as a young boy, growing up in the crowded corridors of Earth's space stations, he felt the pull of the unknown. He would stare out at the stars for hours, imagining worlds where life moved differently, where beings of unimaginable beauty and wisdom might exist. When the opportunity came to join the Virelia colony, he had jumped at it without hesitation. The planet was nothing like Earth. Its sky shimmered with two suns, casting soft golden light over vast forests of glowing plants. Trees with crystalline leaves reflected the sunlight, scattering it into thousands of rainbows across the soft, mossy ground. Rivers ran with water that seemed thicker than normal, carrying a gentle glow as though the currents themselves were alive. Birds, or something like them, floated in the sky with wings that bent light into delicate patterns. Everything about Virelia was alive in ways humans had never imagined. Kai's job was simple on paper: map unexplored regions near the colony. But in reality, it gave him freedom. He could wander, observe, and learn. Today, he had wandered further than usual, chasing the faint glimmer of light that had appeared between the tall, glass-like trees. The closer he got, the warmer the light seemed to feel. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat, and then he saw her. She was standing on a small hill, her hair long and flowing, like liquid light. Her skin shimmered in colors Kai had no names for. She looked at him with eyes that were bright and curious, yet calm, as if she knew him without ever having met him. He froze, unsure whether to step forward or run. Part of him screamed that she was dangerous, that the colony had warned them to never venture near areas like this. But another part, the part that had always chased the unknown, urged him to move closer. He stepped carefully, keeping the soft glow of the trees between them. The girl did not run. Instead, she turned slightly and began to walk deeper into the forest. Her movement was almost floating, and Kai realized that every step she took left a faint trail of light that slowly faded. The trail was mesmerizing, and despite the warnings ringing in his mind, he followed. The forest grew denser as he moved forward. Plants bent and twisted in shapes he had never seen. Leaves glimmered with soft colors, shifting between violet, green, and blue. The air smelled sweet, almost like honey mixed with the scent of rain. Every so often, he glimpsed small creatures flitting between the trees. They were transparent, like glass, and moved with the same elegance as the girl. They observed him but did not approach. He remembered the warnings from the colony elders. "The forbidden zone is not for humans," they had said. "It is alive. It is protective. Entering it without permission could be dangerous." Kai had nodded politely at the time, but curiosity had always been stronger than caution. Now, with the alien girl leading him forward, he felt the pull of something more than fear. It was wonder. The girl led him to a small clearing where the ground sparkled as if it were covered in tiny stars. She paused, looking back at him again. For the first time, she spoke not with words, but with a series of sounds that resonated like music. Kai could not understand, but he felt the rhythm, the rise and fall of tones that seemed to match the pulse of the forest itself. He instinctively responded by mimicking her sounds, unsure if it meant anything, but surprised when she tilted her head in acknowledgement. Kai realized that communication here did not require words. The forest, the creatures, and the girl all seemed connected by some subtle energy he could feel but not see. Each movement, each sound, carried meaning. He tried to move slowly, making sure not to disturb the delicate balance around him. The girl noticed, and her expression softened, as if she approved of his respect. The path led them to a small river, its water glowing faintly in the dim light. As the girl knelt and touched the surface, the water responded, rippling in colors that Kai could not name. He knelt beside her, carefully placing his hand on the river. The colors shifted again, almost like a greeting. He realized then that the forest itself was intelligent. It was aware of their presence, and perhaps it had been watching him from the moment he entered. Kai felt a mix of awe and humility. He had imagined alien worlds before, but nothing could have prepared him for this. He wanted to speak, to ask who she was, where she came from, and why she had appeared to him. But words seemed unnecessary here. The forest, the river, the light, and the girl communicated more clearly than any language he had ever known. After a moment, the girl rose and moved deeper into the forest. Kai followed, careful to step lightly, mindful of the fragile life around him. The trees began to grow taller, their trunks spiraling upward like towers of glass. Light passed through them in ribbons, creating patterns on the ground that seemed almost magical. Kai felt as if he were walking inside a living kaleidoscope. The girl led him to a hill, overlooking a valley filled with plants that shimmered like silver. Tiny creatures floated above the vegetation, leaving trails of light in the air. The girl raised her hand, and the creatures responded, moving in intricate patterns that formed shapes he could barely comprehend. It was beautiful, mesmerizing, and utterly alien. Kai wanted to reach out and touch one of the creatures, but he hesitated, remembering the warnings. The girl noticed his hesitation and smiled, or at least he thought it was a smile. She extended her hand toward him, inviting him to trust her. He took a deep breath and stepped closer. As he did, one of the floating creatures came near him, circling his head before moving away. It was a gentle, almost playful gesture, and he laughed quietly, feeling an unexpected joy. Time seemed to lose meaning as he followed her through the forest. He no longer thought about the colony, the rules, or even danger. All that mattered was the connection he felt to the girl, to the forest, and to the strange, beautiful life that surrounded them. Every step revealed something new. Plants that glowed only when touched, rivers that sang with their flow, and light that seemed to respond to thought. Eventually, they reached the edge of the forbidden zone. A subtle shift in the air told him that beyond this point, the forest was even more alive, more aware, more magical. The girl paused and looked back at him. Her expression was calm, patient, and encouraging. She did not speak, but she beckoned him forward. Kai felt a mixture of fear and excitement. He knew this was the boundary the colony had warned him about, the line humans were told never to cross. But as he looked at her, he realized that fear was a small price to pay for the chance to see something truly extraordinary. With a steadying breath, he stepped forward, leaving behind the familiar world and entering a place where the rules were different, where life moved in ways humans had never imagined. As he crossed the threshold, the light changed. Colors became richer, sounds more vibrant, and the air felt alive. Humming softly against his skin, the girl led him to a small clearing where the ground glowed like liquid silver. She turned to face him, her eyes bright and curious, and for the first time, Kai felt that he truly understood her. They were explorers in different ways, he realized. She explored her world with grace and understanding. He explored his own curiosity, driven by a desire to know and to learn. Together, in this strange, glowing forest, they shared a moment of understanding that went beyond words. Kai knew that this was only the beginning. The Forbidden Zone was vast, full of mysteries that he could not yet comprehend. And the girl, his guide, his companion in this uncharted land, was leading him toward discoveries that would change him forever. For now, he simply followed, stepping lightly, breathing slowly, and letting the wonder of the forest fill him. Every leaf, every creature, every glow seemed to whisper secrets of the world around him, and as he walked beside the alien girl, he knew that he had found something far more extraordinary than he had ever imagined. A bond across worlds, a connection to life itself, and a reminder that humans were capable of awe, respect, and understanding beyond measure. And so, Kai followed the alien girl into the Forbidden Zone, unaware of the lessons that awaited him, the wonders he would see, and the ways in which this journey would shape the human heart forever. The forest, deep inside the Forbidden Zone, was unlike anything Kai had ever seen before. Every step he took revealed something new and beautiful. Trees towered higher than any building he had known, their trunks twisting into spirals that caught the soft sunlight in strange, dazzling patterns. Leaves shimmered with colors that shifted as he walked past, sometimes glowing faintly, sometimes reflecting the light like mirrors. Even the air seemed alive, carrying a faint hum, as if the forest itself were breathing. The alien girl led him with an effortless grace. She moved without sound, her glowing feet barely touching the soft, mossy ground. Kai followed as best he could, careful not to disturb anything. He had learned from the first part of their journey that everything here was alive in a way humans were not used to. The plants seemed to notice him, bending slightly as he passed. Small, luminous creatures hovered nearby, watching him with curious eyes but never approaching too closely. Kai marveled at the rhythm of the place. Every movement felt like a dance, the wind shifting the leaves, the water of the streams catching light, the creatures circling above. He began to sense a subtle pattern, though he could not yet understand it. It was as if the forbidden zone communicated in ways humans could only feel, not hear. The alien girl seemed to understand it completely. She paused occasionally, touching a leaf or placing a hand on the ground, and the forest responded as if acknowledging her presence. Kai tried to follow her example. Tentatively, he reached out to touch a glowing flower. The petals opened wider under his hand, releasing a sweet, gentle fragrance. He felt a small pulse of energy run up his arm, warm and comforting, as though the flower were greeting him. His excitement grew. He had expected wonders, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. He was not just observing the forest. He was participating in it. After walking for what felt like hours, they arrived at a river unlike any he had seen. The water flowed slowly, glowing with an inner light that shifted in color from blue to green to gold. It was not cold, nor warm, just alive, vibrant, almost sentient. The alien girl knelt beside it and dipped her hands into the water. The ripples spread across the surface, leaving trails of light that lingered for moments before fading. She gestured for Kai to do the same. He hesitated for only a moment, then placed his hands in the river. The sensation was strange and wonderful. Tiny lights danced across his skin, and he felt a soft vibration, like the river was speaking to him in a language he could not understand but somehow recognize. He glanced at the girl, and she smiled at him, not a human smile, but a soft, luminous expression that made him feel accepted. They continued along the riverbank. Kai noticed that the river seemed to guide them, turning and curving in gentle arcs that led to new wonders. Along the way, he saw creatures that defied description, floating orbs of light, animals with translucent bodies that glowed faintly, and plants that swayed even when there was no breeze. Every living thing seemed to move in harmony, and Kai realized that the Forbidden Zone was not random. It was balanced, organized, and beautiful beyond human imagination. As they moved deeper, Kai began to notice signs of intelligence in the forest. Stones arranged themselves into delicate patterns. Vines twisted into shapes that resembled writing, and flowers opened in sequences that looked like signals. It was as if the forest itself had a memory and a purpose. The alien girl paused in front of one of these formations, and Kai noticed that she touched it gently. The pattern glowed brighter for a moment, and then faded. She looked at him and nodded, as if inviting him to learn. Kai approached the pattern and touched it hesitantly. At first, nothing happened. But then he felt a warmth spreading through his fingers, up his arms, and into his chest. The shapes seemed to move in response to his thoughts. Though he could not understand what they meant, he felt a connection, as though the forest recognized his curiosity and desire to learn. He realized then that this place was not dangerous, it was teaching him. The alien girl moved ahead again, and Kai followed. The river widened, forming a pool that glowed softly with a rainbow of colors. Around it, the plants grew taller and more radiant. He saw strange structures rising from the ground, arches of crystal and towers of light that seemed to hum softly. They were not buildings in the human sense. They were alive, connected to the forest, and yet designed with a purpose that Kai could not fully grasp. The girl approached one of the crystal towers. She placed her hands on it, and the surface rippled like water. Kai watched in awe as images appeared, scenes of creatures moving through the forest, rivers flowing, stars twinkling above. They were memories, Kai realized, preserved in the living crystal. The girl gestured for him to come closer. When he did, the images shifted, showing him scenes of humans arriving on Virelia, exploring, learning, and sometimes making mistakes. Kai felt a surge of emotion. The Forbidden Zone had witnessed humanity's arrival and actions. He saw not just wonder, but caution, as if the forest itself wanted humans to understand something important. The alien girl looked at him with what he interpreted as trust. She seemed to believe that he could learn without causing harm. He took a deep breath and nodded silently, promising himself to respect the place and all it contained. They moved on from the crystal tower and entered a grove where the air shimmered with a soft mist. The mist reflected the light in soft, sparkling patterns, and Kai felt as though he were walking inside a dream. The alien girl paused again and looked at him, her expression urging him to pay attention. As he watched, he noticed tiny creatures emerging from the mist like floating seeds. Carrying gentle light, they circled around them, and when Kai reached out, one landed on his shoulder, soft and warm. He laughed quietly. Thrilled by the gentle contact, the girl made sounds again, soft, musical tones that Kai tried to mimic. When he succeeded in producing a similar rhythm, the creatures responded, creating tiny ripples of light in the air. Kai realized that communication here was not through words, but through patterns, feelings, and shared understanding. The forest, the girl, and the creatures all spoke a language of connection that transcended human speech. As they walked further, Kai felt a sense of timelessness. Hours seemed like minutes, and minutes like moments. He lost track of how far they had gone, or how long he had been in the Forbidden Zone. Every step brought new discoveries. Flowers that opened only when touched, vines that formed intricate shapes, and pools of water that reflected not just their images, but thoughts and emotions. He began to feel that he was not just observing the forest, but becoming part of it. At one point, they reached a small hill overlooking a valley. The view took Kai's breath away. The valley glowed with countless lights, floating and twinkling like stars. Streams of water shimmered as they flowed, and the trees stretched endlessly, their leaves reflecting every color of the rainbow. In the distance, structures of crystal rose like spires, connected by bridges of light. He realized that this was the heart of the Forbidden Zone, a place of harmony, knowledge, and beauty. The alien girl gestured toward the valley, encouraging him to step closer. Kai hesitated for only a moment before moving forward. As he did, he felt a subtle energy rising from the ground, a warmth that seemed to welcome him. The creatures in the valley turned to watch, and the light from the trees brightened slightly. It was as if the entire forest acknowledged his presence and accepted him. Kai sat on a soft patch of moss and watched the girl. She moved with effortless grace, touching the plants and guiding the creatures. He realized that she was a guardian, a protector of the Forbidden Zone. She had lived here her whole life, understanding the balance of the forest in ways Kai could only begin to imagine. And yet, she had allowed him to follow her, to witness the wonders of her world. He felt humbled. Humans often thought of themselves as explorers, as discoverers of the universe, but here he realized that exploration required more than curiosity. It required respect, understanding, and a willingness to learn from what was already alive. The alien girl had given him a gift, not just the chance to see the beauty of the Forbidden Zone, but the chance to understand it in a deeper way. Kai spent hours in that valley, learning without words. He watched how the creatures moved, how the plants responded to touch, and how the forest seemed to communicate through light and rhythm. He felt a growing connection not just to the girl, but to the entire living world around him. It was a connection humans rarely experienced, and he understood that it was precious. As the suns began to set, casting soft golden and violet light across the valley, the alien girl gestured for him to follow. They moved toward a cluster of crystal structures that seemed to hum with energy. Kai felt a sense of anticipation. He did not know what awaited him, but he knew that he was ready to learn, to experience, and to respect whatever the forest revealed next. Walking beside her, he realized that the Forbidden Zone was teaching him something more profound than any map or guide could. It was teaching him patience, empathy, and the power of understanding. Humans were capable of great things, he thought. But their greatest strength would be in listening, observing, and learning, without destroying. And so, Kai followed the alien girl deeper into the heart of the Forbidden Zone, ready to discover mysteries beyond imagination. Guided by her wisdom and the living, breathing forest that welcomed him as one of its own, Kai followed the alien girl as they moved deeper into the heart of the Forbidden Zone. The light around them grew softer, yet warmer, as though the forest itself was guiding them toward something important. Every tree seemed to hum, and the leaves shifted gently, brushing against one another in a sound like soft whispers. Kai realized that this was no ordinary forest. It had intelligence, and it was aware of him in a way that was both comforting and humbling. The alien girl led him to a large clearing surrounded by enormous crystal formations. Each crystal was translucent, but inside, a soft light pulsed like a heartbeat. When Kai stepped closer, he noticed images moving within the crystals, scenes of rivers flowing, creatures playing, and forests alive with energy. The girl placed her hand on one of the crystals, and the images shifted. Kai saw flashes of moments he did not understand at first, but gradually, he began to recognize them as memories not just of the forest, but of the creatures who had lived there for countless generations. Kai felt a mix of awe and wonder. He had read about alien worlds in books, but seeing the memories of a living place was beyond anything he had imagined. He reached out, placing his hand on a crystal, and was startled to feel a gentle warmth spreading through his fingers. The images responded to his touch, shifting slightly, as if acknowledging him. The alien girl smiled softly, her eyes glowing with a light that Kai had begun to recognize as a sign of trust and approval. She gestured for him to move closer to the center of the clearing. Kai noticed that the crystals here were arranged in a circle, like a gathering place. As he stepped inside, he felt a subtle vibration under his feet. It was not unpleasant, but it filled him with a sense of anticipation. The alien girl raised her hands, and the lights inside the crystals brightened, casting patterns across the clearing that danced like living stars. Kai realized that this was a place of learning, a living library of the forest. Each crystal held knowledge, preserved for anyone patient and respectful enough to observe it. The girl moved among the crystals, touching each one with careful reverence. Kai followed her, noticing how each crystal responded differently. Some pulsed with light, others emitted soft harmonic sounds, and a few seemed to project emotions, joy, curiosity, or calm. He sat beside her and placed his hand on a crystal that hummed softly. Immediately, he felt a rush of understanding. Not words, not speech, but images, feelings, and impressions flowed into him. He saw how the forest had grown, how the rivers and plants and creatures were connected in perfect harmony. He sensed that this place had its own rules, its own balance, and that every action within it mattered. The girl touched another crystal and then gestured toward Kai. He moved closer and pressed his hands to it, feeling a soft vibration. He saw visions of humans exploring Virelia, some who came with curiosity and respect, and others who were careless or dismissive. The forest, he realized, remembered all of it. It was not angry, but it was aware. He understood why the elders of the colony had warned him to stay away. The Forbidden Zone was not dangerous in the way humans usually feared. It was alive, aware, and protective. As Kai absorbed this knowledge, the alien girl guided him toward a smaller circle of crystals. These glowed more brightly than the others, and pulsed in a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat. Kai noticed that the light responded to his presence, growing stronger when he approached, and dimming slightly when he stepped back. The girl placed her hand on the largest crystal, and Kai felt a wave of warmth and calm flow through him. She then made a series of soft sounds, musical and flowing, and Kai instinctively responded. The tones he made seemed to resonate with the crystal, causing it to glow even brighter. The forest around them shifted subtly, as if acknowledging the harmony they had created. Kai realized that this was a form of communication, an exchange of energy, thought, and emotion that transcended words. The alien girl guided him through the patterns, showing him how to interact with the crystals gently, without forcing anything. Each touch, each sound, each gesture elicited a response, teaching him patience and attentiveness. Kai began to understand that the Forbidden Zone was a teacher, and that the girl was its guide. He also began to understand himself not just as an observer, but as a participant, capable of learning, contributing, and respecting the balance of life around him. Time seemed to flow differently here. Hours, Kai realized, had passed, but it felt like minutes. He had lost track of the suns in the sky and the rhythm of the world outside the Forbidden Zone. All that mattered was the present, the crystals, the forest, the alien girl, and the connection he felt to this living, breathing place. After some time, the girl led him to a small pool in the center of the clearing. The water was perfectly still and reflected the glowing crystals above like a mirror. When Kai looked into it, he saw images of himself not as he appeared, but as his thoughts and feelings projected them. He saw his curiosity, his patience, and his awe reflected back at him. He realized that the Forbidden Zone was showing him his own potential. The girl touched the water, and the images shifted to show humans and aliens interacting, learning from each other, sharing knowledge, and exploring without harm. Kai understood then that this place was teaching him a lesson about humanity. Humans had the power to change, to grow, and to connect with the universe in ways far beyond what he had ever imagined. But it required respect, patience, and the willingness to see life as a whole, not just in pieces. Kai sat quietly, absorbing the lessons. He thought about the colony and the other humans who might never understand this place. He realized that knowledge without respect could lead to destruction, but understanding combined with care could create harmony. The girl watched him closely, her expression glowing softly, as if acknowledging that he understood the importance of his actions. She then led him to a narrow path lined with luminous flowers. As they walked, Kai noticed that the flowers responded to his movements, opening and closing with gentle pulses. He reached out and touched one, feeling a soft warmth that spread through his hand. The alien girl smiled, and Kai realized that she was teaching him the subtle ways the Forbidden Zone responded to life. Every action, every gesture, every thought mattered here. They arrived at a small hill overlooking another valley. This one was different, less radiant, but still alive with energy. Tiny creatures moved among the plants, and streams of water shimmered faintly in the distance. The girl gestured toward the valley, inviting Kai to observe. He sat quietly, taking in the view, and felt a deep sense of connection. He began to understand that the Forbidden Zone was not just a place of beauty. It was a living archive, preserving the history, knowledge, and wisdom of the planet. It was a place where life could flourish in harmony, where knowledge was shared through experience rather than words, and where every being played a role in maintaining balance. Kai reflected on his own species. Humans were explorers, yes, but often careless. They took what they wanted, destroyed what they did not understand, and rarely paused to learn from the worlds they visited. Here, in the Forbidden Zone, he saw a model for how humanity could grow not through conquest, but through observation, understanding, and respect. The alien girl noticed his contemplation and made a soft, musical sound. Kai responded instinctively, and the crystals around them glowed brighter. The forest seemed to acknowledge their harmony. He felt a wave of gratitude and humility. This was more than a lesson, it was an invitation to become a better human, a better observer, a better learner. As the suns began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the valley, the girl led Kai back toward the central clearing. The crystals pulsed softly, reflecting the changing light, and the creatures of the forest gathered near, watching quietly. Kai felt a profound sense of peace. He had learned more in these hours than he could have imagined. He had seen beauty, intelligence, and harmony beyond human understanding. He had begun to understand the importance of respect, patience, and connection. Before leaving the clearing, the alien girl made one final gesture. She touched the largest crystal, and it projected a vision of the forest as a whole, a living, breathing network of life, knowledge, and energy. Kai saw himself within that network, a small but capable participant, learning, observing, and growing. He realized then that humans had the potential to be guardians of knowledge and life, not just observers. The girl turned to him, and for the first time, Kai felt a clear sense of communication between them. It was not through words, but through understanding, trust, and shared experience. He nodded, and she responded with a soft glow of her skin, a sign of approval and encouragement. Kai knew he could not stay here forever. The colony awaited, and the Forbidden Zone would always remain, a place of mystery, beauty, and learning. But he also knew that he had been changed. He had learned lessons about respect, curiosity, patience, and connection that he could carry back to humanity. He felt a deep sense of responsibility not to take, not to exploit, but to share, teach, and protect the knowledge he had gained. As they walked back toward the edge of the Forbidden Zone, Kai glanced around at the glowing trees, the floating creatures, and the shimmering rivers. He felt a wave of gratitude toward the alien girl, who had guided him with patience and care. He also felt a quiet determination to honor the lessons of this place, to be a better human, and to remember that the universe was full of wonders that demanded respect and understanding. When they finally reached the edge, Kai paused. The alien girl looked at him, and for a moment, he felt a deep connection, an unspoken promise that their bond would remain, even across worlds. She turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving behind a faint trail of glowing light, a reminder that trust, curiosity, and respect could create connections beyond imagination. Kai stood there for a long time, absorbing the experience. He knew that this journey had changed him, that the Forbidden Zone had taught him lessons he would carry for the rest of his life. And as he walked back toward the colony, he felt a sense of hope for himself, for humanity, and for the possibility of understanding and harmony in the universe. Kai emerged from the Forbidden Zone with a mixture of relief, awe, and a quiet determination. The glowing forest behind him shimmered like a dream fading at dawn. He could feel the energy of the place still lingering in his body, like a soft vibration that reminded him he had been part of something extraordinary. Every step toward the colony felt surreal. The world outside seemed ordinary now, as if the colony had shrunk in comparison to the living beauty he had just left behind. The journey back was slower than he expected. Kai kept glancing at the edge of the Forbidden Zone, half expecting the alien girl to reappear. He thought of her often not in words, but in feelings. There was a sense of trust, an understanding that had grown between them without needing speech. She had taught him patience, respect, and the importance of harmony with life. Kai realized that this encounter was more than a discovery of a hidden forest. It was a lesson in humanity itself. As he approached the colony, familiar structures came into view. Metallic buildings, solar arrays, and the hum of human activity greeted him. The contrast was striking. The colony had its own energy, busy, practical, full of human ambition, but it lacked the quiet, patient wisdom of the Forbidden Zone. Kai noticed the workers moving with purpose, unaware of the lessons the forest held just beyond the barrier. A part of him wanted to shout, to tell them everything, but he knew the knowledge was delicate. The Forbidden Zone could not be forced or rushed. It demanded respect, understanding, and time. Kai returned to his small quarters, exhausted but exhilarated. He sat by the window and gazed out at the colony lights, reflecting on the day's experiences. The memory of the alien girl, the glowing rivers, the living crystals, and the creatures that had danced in harmony with the forest played in his mind like a vivid tapestry. He realized that humans often missed the subtle beauty of the universe because they moved too quickly, looking only for utility, conquest, or control. Here, he had learned that true exploration was not about taking, it was about learning, observing, and connecting. The next morning, Kai made his way to the colony's central hub. Scientists, engineers, and explorers were gathered, discussing mapping data and resource plans. Kai's mind was elsewhere, still immersed in the lessons of the Forbidden Zone. He realized that his report could be more than technical data. It could be a message about respect, curiosity, and human potential, but he also understood that conveying such subtlety would be difficult. Most humans expected facts, numbers, and measurable results, not reflections on harmony and understanding. During a scheduled briefing, Kai presented his mapping data, showing the colony the terrain he had explored. He included the rivers, the valleys, and the strange crystal formations. Some of his colleagues listened with polite interest, others with skepticism. But Kai could see that the maps only told part of the story. The true wonder, the life, intelligence, and harmony of the Forbidden Zone was invisible on any chart. After the meeting, Kai walked through the colony, observing his fellow humans. He noticed their energy, their drive, and their focus on efficiency. But he also noticed their lack of awareness, how they overlooked beauty, ignored subtle signs, and rarely considered consequences beyond the immediate. Kai felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had glimpsed a model of life that humans could learn from, and he knew he had to carry that lesson forward, even if it meant teaching it in small, careful ways. Kai began small. He spoke to a few trusted colleagues, sharing stories of the glowing rivers, the living crystals, and the creatures that responded to touch and thought. He described the alien girl and her patient guidance, carefully avoiding details that might lead to recklessness. At first, they were skeptical, brushing it off as imagination or exaggeration. But as Kai described, the subtle interactions, the way life responded to respect, the patterns in the light, the lessons in patience, they began to listen. Slowly, curiosity sparked in their eyes. Kai realized that humans had a natural desire to explore and understand. The Forbidden Zone was teaching him that this desire could be guided by respect rather than control, by learning rather than domination. He shared the most important lesson he had learned: that true exploration was not about ownership or conquest, but about connection, observation, and harmony. He encouraged others to consider the consequences of their actions, to pause and listen, and to remember that life, whether human or alien, was interconnected. Days passed, and Kai found himself thinking of the alien girl often. He wondered if she was watching him from afar, aware that he had learned her lessons. He hoped that he had honored her trust. He also reflected on the Forbidden Zone itself, realizing that it had given him something humans rarely received: the understanding that knowledge and beauty were not to be taken, but to be respected. The forest, the crystals, and the creatures had all taught him that every action mattered, and that even small gestures could ripple through life in ways unseen. Kai began to explore other parts of the colony with new eyes. He noticed details he had ignored before: the way plants were grown, the way energy systems hummed, the quiet interactions between humans. He began to apply the lessons of the Forbidden Zone in small ways, moving gently through spaces, observing rather than rushing, listening rather than speaking first. He saw subtle changes in the way people responded. Curiosity and patience began to spread, quietly, almost imperceptibly, among those who interacted with him. One evening, Kai returned to the edge of the Forbidden Zone. He could see the glow of the forest beyond, faint and inviting. He did not enter this time. Instead, he sat on a small hill, watching the light shift and pulse. He felt the presence of the alien girl in a way that was more than memory. It was a connection, a recognition that learning and trust could transcend species and worlds. He reflected on the lessons he had received and knew that the most important task was not to dominate or control, but to share, teach, and protect. As weeks passed, Kai became a quiet leader in the colony. He encouraged careful observation of alien life, thoughtful exploration, and the importance of respecting unknown worlds. He taught others to see with patience, to notice patterns, and to honor life in all its forms. Slowly, the colony began to change. Humans were still humans, curious, ambitious, and sometimes impatient, but they were learning to temper their desires with understanding. Kai had introduced a new perspective, one that combined human drive with wisdom learned from the Forbidden Zone. One morning, as he walked near the edge of the forest, Kai noticed a faint shimmer in the distance. His heart leapt. The alien girl appeared briefly, her form glowing softly against the morning light. She did not approach, but she raised her hand in a gentle gesture. Kai understood instantly. It was a sign of acknowledgement, a confirmation that the trust had been respected. He waved back, smiling, and felt a sense of joy and fulfillment unlike anything he had known before. Kai returned to the colony with renewed purpose. He knew that the true gift of the Forbidden Zone was not just the knowledge of the forest, but the ability to see humanity in a new light. Humans could explore, learn, and grow, but only if they approached with curiosity, respect, and patience. He began documenting his experiences, not just as reports, but as reflections and stories that could inspire future generations of humans to approach alien worlds thoughtfully. Months later, the colony had grown, but the lessons of the Forbidden Zone continued to influence daily life. Kai observed young explorers learning to move carefully through alien landscapes, guided by the principles he had shared. Scientists documented not just physical data, but subtle patterns, interactions, and responses. Engineers designed systems that integrated with natural environments, rather than overriding them. Kai realized that his experience had begun a quiet revolution, a change in how humans related to life beyond Earth. One evening, Kai returned once more to the hill overlooking the Forbidden Zone. The forest glowed faintly in the twilight, serene and alive. He thought of the alien girl and the lessons she had taught him. He knew that humans had much to learn, but he also knew that they were capable of great respect, understanding, and wonder. The Forbidden Zone had shown him that the universe was vast, mysterious, and full of life, and that humans had a place within it, not as conquerors, but as learners and protectors. As the sun set, casting long shadows and painting the sky with shades of gold and violet, Kai felt a deep sense of peace. He had been changed, not just by what he had seen, but by what he had learned. He understood that the greatest strength humans possessed was not in technology or numbers, but in their ability to observe, to empathize, and to connect with the world around them. Kai smiled as he watched the glow of the Forbidden Zone in the distance. He knew that the alien girl, and the living forest she protected, would always be a part of him. The lessons he had learned would guide him, inspire him, and influence humanity for years to come. And he knew that the true adventure, the journey of understanding, respect, and wonder, was only beginning. The story of the Forbidden Zone, the alien girl, and the lessons of patience and harmony spread quietly among the colony. It was not a tale of conquest or triumph, but of connection and growth. Humans learned that the universe held mysteries far beyond their imagination, and that their greatest potential lay not in taking, but in learning, observing, and respecting the life around them. Kai continued to explore, to teach, and to reflect, knowing that the bond he had formed with the alien girl and the forest was a reminder of humanity's highest potential. The Forbidden Zone remained, serene and radiant, a living testament to the beauty and wisdom of life beyond human understanding. And Kai, forever changed, walked forward with wonder, humility, and hope, ready to share the lessons of the universe with all who would listen.